themselves.
And we are live. Welcome to the design workshop.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shristi. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the best workshop in this hackathon. Just kidding. There's so many great workshops here, but this is the design workshop. It is hosted by Freetail's very own creative team. And we're here over here and we want to introduce ourselves first. So we're not strangers. Let's start us off with, hi, I'm Ellen. I'm Freetail's creative director. I'm a design BFA at UT Austin. I'm minoring in business administration. I do some freelance design on the side. You can contact me, shameless plug. I tend to focus on branding and UI UX design. So falls perfectly within Freetail's creative team where you get to work on both of those things. But I also do enjoy yacht and car design on the side. And I love long walks on the beach. If you have any questions during this hackathon about design or you need any input, critique, feel free to message me on Discord.
Hello, so I'm Amy. I'm one of the members in our creative team. I'm a design BFA, first gen college student. I focus on UI UX design, and some of my interests are just like binge watching anime, petting my dog, listening to J-pop, and like doodling in my sketchbook.
And this is one of her amazing pieces that she did recently. Crazy. Crazy cool.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I do some like game art and like UX stuff. If you need any help, please like reach out. My name is like literally my name on Discord, so.
Alrighty.
Hello, everyone. I am a senior in the Design BFA program here at UT. I'm also pursuing a minor in business. I love all things product and industrial design, specifically like 3D modeling and rendering. I'm also, I'm not the shortest member of the creative team, but I am not the tallest. Thank you, Anna, for that. That is my portfolio site and my LinkedIn if you want to reach out and kind of get to know me more. I do play around with little graphic design, as you can see in that little beautiful portrait of me made by me. So yeah, thank you.
All right, so what do we do? Excuse this graphic. This is creative team's one of our favorite emojis, so we had to add it in. So as I said, as Freetail's creative team, we work on a lot of the branding, a lot of the UI, UX. So that could be like visual assets. We do all the merchandise and swag that you get from our hackathons. Be sure to check that out, especially at Hack Texas. Another shameless plug, we do that in our fall semester and you get so much swag from that. T-shirts, stickers, all this merchandise. So that's what creative team does. We also do posters, social media, like Instagram stories, and most importantly for this pandemic in the last year, UX design. And that's what we want to cover here because I know a lot of your projects this hackathon will be focused on UX and interaction design. So here is the stuff that creative has worked on. This is some of the Freetail assets that you may have seen around that we have worked on. Very, very fun. If you guys didn't know, our theme, frogs or tadpoles, for the Learnathon is inspired by growing from little tadpoles into frogs as you learn throughout the hackathon and you eventually become a code toad, which is really, really fun. Yes, cute stickers to come. But I wanted to cover why is design important? Why are you here? You're probably thinking, why did I wake up this early for this workshop? Well, first of all, design is like everywhere. It's everywhere. From the lamp on my desk over here, your Nintendo Switch in the corner over there, like everything is designed essentially. There's always a designer behind that. Same goes for websites that you go on. You've got a website designer, somebody who plans out the layout and helps, with the visual assets. And then you work together with, in our case, tech team, but with a coder or somebody developing to create that beautiful, amazing site that people interact with on a daily basis. And that's crazy. But like, why should you care about design in this hackathon? That's another thing that you want to address too, because you're thinking, oh, this is so short. What does design matter? Design has such a psychological impact. If something is aesthetic, you're obviously going to be drawn to it. It's like pretty privilege. Like if something's pretty, if your project's pretty, it's going to have more of a chance of winning. It's great. Like we love that. So here is our tips to starting a good design. Yes, that's us in the bottom corner. We love it. All right. So first, want to start off. We are all, again, design BFAs, and we wanted to share some tips we learned from design school. So our first tip, have multiple people peek out your process. If you were at Palash's and Shrey's workshop, their ideation workshop, which was just like 10 minutes ago, they were saying, don't be afraid to share your ideas first in your ideations. And I totally agree with it because, you know, rare cases, most people won't steal it. And if they do, like, they probably will anyways. After you make it, it's going to be out there, the idea, but it just all depends on how well you can put it out there and implement it yourself. So it doesn't really matter. So first, have people peek at your process, have people see what you're doing. Like if you don't do that and you end up with a finished product and you're showing that to people, it's going to be worth the not, because, you know, nobody, if you end up making something that nobody likes, then you're going to have to start over from scratch, and that sucks. Second point.
The second point, okay. So the second point is take criticism, be humble, fix your mistakes. Design criticism is not personal. So designers, you just have to like detach yourself from your product. Good news is that like web design and UX design, there is like an objective way to measure the effectiveness of your product or like your design decision using methods like design research and usability testing. So a lot of times, like design is not like just your like aesthetics. It has to do with like usability, how users perceive it, technical constraints, and also some business requirement that has like nothing to do with your like personal taste. So just like be mindful of that. The next one, please.
So one of the most important things that are often like looked over is just remembering who you're designing this for. Whether it is starting from the very beginning when you're brainstorming, doing your research, your target audience, a lot of designers tend to forget who they're designing for, and by the end, they kind of lost sight of their original mission. So it's always a good thing to always constantly be bouncing back and forth to see if your design is actually solving the problem that you initially like identified. And this kind of segues into the next thing, which is the topic of accessibility. It's more important now than ever as we live in a very digital world. Everything revolves around the screen and the internet. So while your designs can be amazing and wonderful through your screen, it won't mean anything if nobody else can see it. And there are many, many websites that you can use to check the accessibility, you know, for people with disabilities such as visual impairment, speech, hearing, or technology that helps them visualize what you're trying to communicate. So that's a very important thing that I believe everybody should look at, whether it's a web design, UX product, or a poster. Another thing is make sure your design is responsive. And it's kind of confusing, but many web design softwares, they're not responsive in the nature where if I'm looking at through my laptop and I design it through my laptop, it'll look completely different on my phone, my iPad, or even your desktop. So it's very important that you're constantly bouncing back, kind of remembering like what your overall mission is. So you keep that like the same like image in your head and make sure that it just looks the way you intended.
All right. So I want to talk about static versus dynamic real quick. And for people who are doing web design projects, this is also something that you might want to keep an eye on, but this could relate to apps as well. First, what are static and dynamic sites? First, static, they're fixed, they're pre-rendered, and that means every user has the same content. And so these don't change regardless of what browser you use. So our Learnathon website, for example, is a static website. Most of these websites are like great for giving information, maybe telling information about an app that you're using. If you're using a website to, I don't know if stopaapihate.org, I don't know if you guys have been on there. That, I was gonna say that's a static website, but you do interact with that by putting in input. So that would probably be more dynamic. But any site that you're not directly interacting with, that's a static site. And they use languages such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Dynamic sites, on the other hand, are use server technologies and the content management systems or external databases to proceed with real-time renders. So the content that the user gets is related to like the user. So Twitter is a great example for that one because it takes, where you're living, your age, what kind of content do you like? We interact with so many dynamic websites. Instagram again. Social media is a huge, big dynamic website thing. I don't want to butcher saying the language names because I'm going to embarrass myself in front of all these comp sci majors, but PHP, Node.js, and ASP.NET. I hope I'm saying that right. Shristi's laughing. I don't know if I am. But again, these are great for social platforms and user interaction. And real quick, I do want to I've got some pros and cons right here. I've got my notes up. So static, why should you use static? Static is great for flexibility, cost, and load time. So they load faster usually. Disadvantages of static are that they're difficult to update, scale, and have high maintenance costs. For dynamic websites, they're powered by databases and they connect to the CMS, so it's more personable, which is great. And they have low ongoing maintenance costs, but there might be a few design limitations because, again, you're adapting to every single person, right, with the same kind of code. So designing it might be a little bit harder, and the upfront build cost might be really high. I would say for a lot of startups, like the one down here that I pictured, Schools Love Local, that's my mom's startup company. But for startups, like static sites usually are better because, you know, you're just getting your information out there. But of course, I know a lot of people might be working on dynamic projects too, which we totally encourage. Either way, you can't go wrong. All right, another thing, hierarchy. So this is also a really important design thing. So the hierarchy of text hierarchy matters, size matters in this case. So the items we want to emphasize should be large. Look at this picture on the right-hand side of the screen. Obviously, the first thing you see is you will read this first in the middle. And then as you go smaller and smaller and smaller, as the text size varies, your eye follows and travels throughout the page. So you can use this to your advantage. Right over here, you've got a huge picture. Your eyes obviously go to this beautiful smiling young woman here. Then you're going to see the huge title on the number 2. Then you're going to see that flashy purple button, which is number 3, which is smaller than number 2. So that's why you go to that 3rd. And then the 4th are going to be these cool little things down here. So let's have some participation. I don't know if me opening the chat will disrupt my screen sharing, but like, I'll let Stephen and Amy help me out here and read the chat for me because I don't want to disrupt that. But let's see, what does your eye go to first? What's the hierarchy of this site? Throw it in.
Someone said Stephen's butt, and I agree. I agree.
Nick.
Yeah. The blue text at the top.
Yes, I would agree. I think it's nice because it contrasts really greatly to the white background. So the contrast really helps. What would you say would be the second point of hierarchy?
For me personally, I'd say try it for free.
Yeah, I'd agree too with that.
But then again, it could be a lot louder.
They're definitely, this one's a hard one. We probably should have put this last because this one, the hierarchy isn't as like noticeable. But yes.
But it's a great example of poor hierarchy.
Poor hierarchy.
Yeah.
Sorry to this.
So what's going on with you guys?
We are in the middle of a design workshop. So welcome in if you're just joining. We're talking about hierarchy. So let's do this one. If anybody wants to share or put in the chat, what's the hierarchy on this? What does your eye go to first? And this is Apple's website, of course. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't know that, but no judgment if you don't. We're all iPhone users here, though.
So people have been saying calling all players, the red iPad, are the things that draw their attention.
Ding, ding, ding. Correct. 100%. Calling all players. That's a great one. Definitely also using these big images here. I think you go to this first, but then because you've got all these beautiful visual elements, your eye travels to that too. And that's a perfect way to display your app or website too, because your product or whatever product that you have, having these flashy images that catch people's attention is great for promoting your product. All right. So as a branding designer who loves like visual stuff, I'm going to go nerdy over here. I'm going to go color. Color is super, super important in UX design because it has, again, a lot of psychological impacts. So I've worked with clients as a freelancer who are like, I want my website to be brown because brown is my favorite color. I'm like, I love brown too. I feel like earth tones are so in these days for fashion. However, websites, I don't know if I can agree, especially for your website, because I know it's financial based and like 97% of women say that they are immediately turned off if they see the color brown on the website. Fun fact. So maybe let's not use brown. So that's why the thought of color is super important. Now I'm going to go through that. First of all, let's go with red. Everyone knows the rainbow, but there are some other implications that colors might have. So red, let's look at these UX designs. Red could be power, excitement, strength, passion, love. If you're working on an app, maybe you want to convey that you're a company that's really going to blow up. You're going to go big and you're serious about what you do. Red might be the color to go because it kind of has that empowering feel. Orange over here. Orange can convey confidence, energy, success, bravery, or sociability. I feel like I butchered that word. Sorry, talking, but oh well. But for here, let's look at these UX designs. We've got the We Are Soup, really fun. I think there's definitely a lot of energy in this website. Love this. So if you're making an app that is perhaps focused toward like, oh, getting people outside and off their butts and getting them to do energetic stuff, maybe you want to go with orange. Yellow. So yellow, optimism, warmth, happiness, creativity, also energy, friendliness, and caution. These are some great websites that use yellow. StopAAPIHate.org is somewhere that I've been doing a paper on, and I mentioned it earlier in this presentation, but they use a great color scheme too, because yellow is a color that strongly conveys caution and awareness and warning. And so using that with the contrast of the black background really, really stands out and highlights, oh, this is the point we want to make. And I think that works really, really well in their web design. Green. So we already kind of know where green is going. Health, hope, nature, growth. Freshness, prosperity, and wealth. A lot of this, like, look, the plant stuff, when you look up green UX design, it's mostly plant-based or salad or healthy eating, very much fueled toward the outdoors and, apps that are fueled toward health. Blue. So this is trust, loyalty, dependability, logic, serenity, and security. I see these days that a lot of tech companies use blue. A lot of, I guess, companies that want to go for the innovative feel. Facebook, when it was starting out, definitely the blue is a classic. A lot of companies use blue in their design. And so you can see this right here. I love these pictures because they have a lot of data. Here it says accurate, affordable across the country on the top left example. And I think that really shows that like blue is great for showing that, hey, we're trustworthy. Lastly, purple. So purple could be wisdom, luxury, wealth, spirituality, sophistication, royalty, sometimes playful, like Twitch. I love Twitch. Stream on there sometimes, but Twitch, it's playful. Here's their little branding guide up here, and that's really, really cool to look at. And that's how brand designers work on, making sure they're in brand. But yeah, this is purple. Last bit of color information I want to share with y'all why it's so important. Take a look at who your audience is too. So not only know what app you're designing for and what you want to gear your color towards, because, oh, this is my app's cause. But also, who's your target audience? Are you building an app that you want young Gen Zers to interact with? Are you building an app that is geared toward maybe stay-at-home moms? I don't know, watching your kids, getting babysitters. I don't know, just find your target audience and see what do they like, because that's how you're going to grab them. So here's some fun little psychological charts that you can look at. The colors liked by men and colors liked by women. Oh, maybe I was off on that brown point. Oh, maybe not. Up here. There we go. Most disliked colors. Okay, brown was 20%, not 97%, but close,
Yeah, so okay, now we're gonna put everything we learned about design all together. Next slide, please. Here's an example of how I would go through the UI/web design process from low fidelity sketches to medium fidelity wireframes and to high fidelity mockups. And as you can see here, I do have the, what's it called? Responsiveness for our design, as we do design for the web desktop and mobile version. Yeah, so if you're working on an application with like engineers or developers, a good tip or things to keep in mind is that you want to get them involved in your design process as early as you can, even in like the medium fidelity stage. You want them to sort of like check your feasibility of your design. And also that would give your engineers plenty of time to figure out the backend stuff while you're still iterating on your design. And then for front-end developers, they can start working on making like components, even if the styling hasn't been finalized. So I think it's always good to get them involved and also just having more feedback and eyes to look at your design. Yeah, and if you're making a web app for today, you don't have to like make it responsive or anything. Just prioritize the platform that your target user would most likely use. And having both design is like good, but like if you plan on like further like developing this product, feel free to like include more designs. But yeah, and if you're like a CS major, just remember to like support and communicate with your design partners and making all your decisions. So, you know, like creating a digital product is like a collaboration, and you'll be able to have a more successful outcome at the end. And here we want to look at Spotify's mobile design. Why does it look good? Well, you see the visual language across these three screens feel fairly cohesive because when you see the gradients on the top are like very intentional. They reflect the respective genre. If you think about color theory that Ellen just talked about, if you look at the gutters and alignments, like the blue rectangles, they're very consistent across different screens. And then if you look at digital accessibility, the color contrast is very strong with the white text against the black background, creating a very like stark contrast for people even with like low vision or like color blindness. And lastly, in terms of composition, Spotify organizes its content with like grouping. It has very clear grouping with the principles of proximity. It's one of the Gestalt principles if you were to look into graphic design, which suggests that like related elements should be spaced closer together. And then like the unrelated ones should be spaced further apart. So you can see how like the sessions are divided. Yeah, and then lastly, I think it's just like important to realize that design is, there's always like intention, and intentionality is like really important. And also just adding a little bit of extra white space usually don't hurt. So play around with it and play with design. And yeah, next slide, please. And then programs. So Ella might want to talk about like some of the free ones. I do know Adobe Illustrator and Adobe XD are like comes with your subscription for Adobe Creative Cloud. Figma is free for students and is browser friendly. Sketch is only for Mac. So if you're on a window, you might not be able to install that. And Ella can talk about the last 2 bullet points.
I know, well, I'll let Stephen cover the last one, but GIMP and Inkspace are free options that are, well, GIMP is not vector-based, so that works if you don't have Photoshop and you want to work on some pictures, maybe Photoshop some stuff out, Photoshop the app into your phone, so you've got more of a better looking prototype to show people and investors maybe in the future if you're going that far. Inkscape is a great place for vector art. So that means just like Adobe Illustrator, but it's free. And so vector art is where you can scale the artwork up to any size. It could be like literally the size of a billboard on a building, and you still would not get that pixelated look because it is vector based and not raster based.
So while we all want to be as good as Jason at design, the king of tech, the one who's like made our websites, and you know, we're all here today because of him, but we can't be him, right? And so the best way that we can try to be like him is use Preview. I don't know if many of you guys use Mac, but it is the free software included on Mac OS. And in my opinion, it is like the great value, the up and up version of Adobe Photoshop. Preview is so incredibly powerful because you can edit, you can crop, you can export, you can do like so many like different things with it, and it's all free. Like if you look at the graphic design is my passion image, you can see the frog, it has like the white background, right? But if the user had preview, they could have used the magic wand to take away that white background for free instead of paying like $40 a month for Adobe. So just FYI, be like Jason.
Facts. Yeah. Awesome. And that is the end of our little PowerPoint, our presentation from Creative Team. And now we open up the floor to questions, maybe personal design questions or just in general. And maybe I will stop sharing so we can just look at all your beautiful faces. Hello, hello. Oh, yay, we've got more people. Welcome, welcome. And I have not seen the chat in a long time. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free.
I have a question.
Yes.
So let's say you're making like a website, and I guess this often comes around, like if you want to make like a register page or a login page, what kinds of things should you keep in mind for like form-based pages in terms of design?
That's a good one. Definitely register pages. So of course, creative team, we ourselves have worked on stuff like that. That's so what the most important thing about those pages, our reason behind making that is that we want users to register. We want as many applicants and attendees as possible. So that's why we're going to highlight the register button. We're going to make it big. We're going to make it flashy, pretty. If we're going to code it so that the mouse or the cursor, when you hover over it, there's going to be like an obvious outline or something fun is going to happen. So the user is tempted to click on it and register, right? So I think that's a really, really great thing. Also information too. I think having the information on the page right as the user enters so they know what are they getting into. I think that's a really great thing to add in as well. And any of creative team, you can feel free to step in and give your input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just you go. You go.
I'll go really quick. So if you're talking about the actual form, I would make sure that the form is like fairly short because once you start like hit like a certain like number of questions, the dropout rate is going to be much higher. And also when you're framing your questions, make sure they're like inclusive, accessible, and that you're not asking questions that are like, I guess, unnecessary or like discriminatory in any way. Yeah, and then in terms of the actual design, Stephen can go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna build off with Palash, Ellen, and Amy said. Hierarchy is Anna, can you stop slapping my face, please? Thank you. Hierarchy is everything, right? Like you want the user to see the register button as the biggest thing so they know where to go. I don't know if you remember the hierarchy page Ellen showed earlier, where it was like the try me button. It was bright, but the text on it was white on a yellow. And it wasn't that great to see. So that would be an example of what not to do. In terms of text, you want to give enough context so the applicant knows exactly what they're getting themselves into, but you don't want to like swamp the whole page with a whole field of text that will kind of like be hard to read and make the user feel less interested in that. And thank you again, Palash, for the huge carry again in chat.
If I may add to that, as a developer, use the like single sign-ons you get, like sign in with Google, sign in with Apple, because they help you reduce the number of forms that they have to fill out, and it makes the sign-up process a lot quicker.
True. Did we answer it?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions?
I guess I had another question as well. So I don't know. I mean, so whenever I make like websites for like hackathons or something, sometimes I have to like make an entire like analytics page with a bunch of charts and graphs. For things like that, is there a way you organize it so it's so design-wise it fits many of the standards, or how would you go about designing an analytics page? Do you want is there like specific charts you want that you place in different locations, or how do you need to like involve like grouping and things like that? Just wanted to hear some input on that.
Yeah. So again, it just like depends on what project you're doing. I recently worked on a freelance project with Ansh Jain, which he is not here. I'm kind of hurt, but Ansh Jain of Freetail. He's one of the co-leads. And we worked on a project together for a financial website, and that would give the user many charts that organizes their information after you input it. And so I had to figure out, how am I going to lay that out? How is that going to look pretty? Because you're getting all this information, but it's like, it's not like very aesthetically pleasing. So how am I going to like group that? I thought about putting them all on the page, like a single page, because I didn't want the user to have to keep scrolling or keep flipping through pages. But when I really thought about it, like, there's so much information, and if I'm condensing it all into one page, it's gonna be too small. So take a look at size for sure, because I definitely had to resize and ended up, I'm going to sort out all the tables on one slide, and I'm going to make them in this specific arrangement. They're going to go up and down like this, but they're going to be, all side by side and labeled nicely. And then I'm going to flip to another page with the next button, and you're going to be able to see all the graphs and all the information shown in the graphs. So by separating it out, I have enough space, and also there's categories of information as well. But again, it depends on what type of project you want to do.
Okay, yeah, that was good. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add, like, building off what I don't know if you attended Palash's last thing. It was like an hour ago, but he made references to penguins and how many penguins you killed, right? So there's no context, so it sounds weird, but make everything digestible, right? So you might have a huge graph with a bunch of numbers, right? But you might only want to highlight what's most important, or something that will definitely help your case. Like, if you have all these other facts and numbers that go against you, maybe not make that too easily seen. All right, make the ones that you definitely want to be on your side just very big, very vibrant, and just build on your case, right? So, yeah.
Awesome. And I see Amy dropped in some notes in the chat too, if you want to.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anybody else have any other questions? I know we have a few people joining us. So we can answer questions, and then maybe we could do a demo even. We'll see. I could pull up Illustrator. I've done these the other creative workshops, but we'll see how much time we have left, just for fun. But as of now, yes, we're talking about the brown in the chats. For the people viewing on YouTube, we have the Zoom chat up, and we're talking about how brown is allegedly hated by 97% of women. That is what I read.
We're talking about keyboard switches.
Oh, well, oops.
I guess I have another question.
Yeah.
So in terms of user interaction, are there certain types of interaction that you found to be like much more useful or beneficial for interaction than other types of interaction?
That's a good one. I don't know if Amy or Steven want to start this off, because I can't think off the top of my head. Just anything that's like flashy for me, but I'm a very simple person.
That question was so big brain. Can you ask it again, please? I need to digest it a little bit.
Yeah, so in terms of user interaction, I'm sure there's like different kinds of like user interaction you can have on a website or with a product. What kinds of user interaction is, I guess, more, or is there like certain types of interaction that's more interactive than others, or gets more engagement with products or websites?
Can I ask you more about the context of it? Like, are you talking about like perhaps something that you create for like a web page that they land on and things they see first?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of like what Ellen said, it's something more flashy, more interactive, like maybe some animation functions with your mouse, or something that's like animated just to get the attention, just to get like the foot in the door in a way, to kind of cue that interaction. So that, and just overall like accessibility, like can this be seen when they're further away, or whether they're reading something and it's like flashing on the side. Just overall, just trying to get that first point of contact would be the most like beneficial, whether that be like a big giant text or an animation or
yeah, if I could
incentive.
if I could get in here, I think the most important thing is to utilize colors. For example, like our Learnathon website, we utilized contrasting colors, but specifically in one place to get the user to get their eyes landed there first. And then that's the initial thing that you grab their attention with. And then when you hovered over the button, it would have an outline to positively reinforce that this is an interactive object. So it's like a combination of both, where you want to draw their attention there and then also positively reinforce the user to interact with it after they're already they already see it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you.
Oh yes, and by the way, Anna is on our creative team and is also a design major, so that is why she has this big brain information. Any other questions?
I have
Jason,
a
you look like,
question.
oops, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you go.
Like, how often as like the creative team do y'all use like Illustrator or like actual drawing and design things versus like CSS or something like that for like a website?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the UX field, there are a lot of people who actually go into UX design from comp sci backgrounds. It's a pretty great field because both design majors and like comp sci majors can come into that field. Even people who haven't like majored in that can find their way through a lot of learning. But definitely, I would say, let me think on this because I was going somewhere with this and I totally forgot the main question again. This happens a lot with me. What was your main? Yeah, I'll have Amy chime in while I'm collecting my thoughts.
Okay, yeah. So it really depends on like if you're interested in joining our creative team or like working in the UX field. So if you're interested in joining our creative team, we do a lot more artsy stuff just because the nature of our website is fairly like informational and we want to draw people in with like cute assets. But if you're talking about the actual UX industry, a lot of it is more just like digital website and platforms that are very like dense and information heavy, like the dynamic website that Ellen showed us. That tend to be more just application and like there are more like user interaction, a lot heavier like backend. So that you have to really process through a lot more like user experience sort of thing where you figure out like the user flow and like journey maps and doing a lot more research. But for us, like we're just doing cute websites that are fairly like simple. So we do a lot more with like Illustrator and Photoshop. But if you're working in like UX, you probably do more with like prototyping softwares like Figma and XD Sketch and that sort of thing. I know some people may do their high fidelity mockup and like Photoshop or Illustrator, but I think Figma and like other softwares are like catching up or like maybe they're leading the industry. So yeah, I wouldn't like be too concerned about learning the software just because like there are a lot of like tutorials out there and you can like pick it up fairly fast.
Yeah, and definitely if you want to make a project really quickly and you don't have a lot of illustration experience, there's a lot of websites where you can get like a lot of free vectors online to enhance the aesthetic part of your website without having to do any of it manually.
Thanks.
Of course.
I have another question. So for like previous hackathons, I kind of like heard about or read a little bit about like color theory in specific, and I remember seeing something about like the 60-30-10 rule or something where you have to have like 60% like your primary color or something like that and 30% secondary. So I was wondering how big of an impact that plays a role in your design process and if it's really important in the design process.
Yeah, I can start us off and then I'll have like Amy or Steven chime in. But for me, I personally start off with, I guess most designers do, but Amy talked about our prototyping phase. So you've got your low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity prototypes. I start off with a basic sketch. My sketchbook is so messy. I've got lots of like messy sketches for wireframing and layout in that. Then when I go to mid fidelity, I actually make that black and white. I just focus on what assets I want. That's where I actually plan out hierarchy to like a placement degree. But I don't put in color at that phase, actually. It's the high fidelity phase where I actually throw in color, and that's where I do my research and remind myself, oh, who do I want? And then of course the primary, the 60-30-10 rule, like you follow stuff like that. But it comes later in the phase. Just it's important, but again, it's not something you have to worry about until you've actually got everything laid out and the main, I guess, contents of your design or UX or project on there.
Yeah, I can jump in again. So if you are working with like other people, they might have already established like a branding guideline, a style guide with like specific colors that you need to use. So in that case, you'll just use your like dominant brand colors and your secondary colors and that sort of things. But if you're starting your own project, I would also think about just your target users and about your brand, what you want people to perceive you as, I guess, as a brand and product, and that should inform your color decisions. And then secondary colors should come like after that.
Also, I was wondering, I think Ellen mentioned this, but so for each stage, like the low fidelity, mid fidelity, and the high fidelity, what kinds of things should you be considering in each stage? That was interesting that you didn't use color in like the mid fidelity. So I was just wondering, like, are there specific things you do in each stage as you progress?
Yeah. So like the questions you asked before, like they all kind of interconnect. And that's what I love about design is you can find the connections between everything, right? So in the low fidelity and high fidelity stages, you're going in and you're kind of emphasizing, again, hierarchy, and then like what content do you want? So for example, we were talking about the register page earlier, that register button, where am I going to put it? How big does it need to be in relation to everything else? Is it going to be at the top of the screen, or is it going to be at the very bottom after all the content? Who knows? So we figure that out in the low fidelity and mid fidelity stages. And then Amy and Stephen can add on to that as well. Or Stephen or Amy. I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
Yeah, so I kind of work in the opposite of Ellen, actually. I actually start with a color palette at first. I just kind of, I don't use it at first, but I create it first because like judging on the project, the mood, the tone, the vibe, I kind of create that first and I start working from there. So I first create the color palette and then I go into the black and white, kind of like wireframing, like overall structure, just getting that foundation down, like where I want text, where I want photos, where I want to showcase what I want to showcase. And then from that, that's when I start adding in the color. And usually this is where things look ugly, right? So this is where I start moving things around, maybe changing the color, moving the hierarchy and everything. And then in the final, it's all about hierarchy and contrast. Like, does it really get the point that I want to get like across clear enough, right? So that's how like I like to work with my work. But then for Jason, he just like does it all in one go and it always looks so good. So like everybody needs to like go hype this dude up because like Learnathon wouldn't be Learnathon without Jason and the rest of the tech team. Like hard carry dudes. Like
a round of applause for Jason Math, the Jason Math. Yes. Yeah, actually design. Oh, sorry. I'm just gonna say real quick, design and tech work so close together. And so I don't know what major you're in, Abby, or anybody else who's in here. I know a lot of the people in here are ECE, comp sci. Anybody could go into this field. UX design is very welcoming. It's a lucrative field. You can make a lot and do some fun stuff. And honestly, as somebody who loves psychology on the side, I think like it's very interesting, the thought that goes behind all of this. So yes.
Anna, do you want to chime in?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, color aside and aesthetics aside, I think the one thing that you should keep in mind throughout your whole process is the flow of your application. Pretend you're a user using your website and think like, is it intuitive to go from one step to the next step? I know Amazon, they reconstructed their website for a short period of time in once, and they moved the location of their payment button, and it caused them to lose a lot of sales because people couldn't find it and they didn't want to find it. They weren't desperate enough to pay for it if you guys just shop around on Amazon sometimes and want to buy things. So yeah, I think the flow of it is critical for your users to want to use your website. And yeah, I think you should just keep that in mind over everything.
If I may add on what Anna has said, yeah, like figuring the flow is super important, but also from just like a practical standpoint, considering your time constraint and everything, starting with like low fidelity is easy and cheap. You're not investing in much just because they're just like rectangles, squares, right? And you can easily throw them away after you kind of like some initial feedbacks and like start again. If you started with like a high fidelity, you might be more precious. And when you're getting feedback, you might take it like differently. So that's why a lot of times you want to start with like the ugly sketches first. Then you don't feel as bad if you had to like start over again or like scratch the ideas. Yep.
I totally agree.
Unless you're open to honest critique, because if you show them the high fidelity first and you're so proud of it and they like absolutely bash it, you have time to change. Right?
That's true.
So it's just how thick your skin is, bro. If you're able to take it, show it first thing and learn from it.
That's something we learn in design school. We are definitely humbled here because everybody else is doing very similar stuff. And so people will tear you apart, even if your spacing for like the button in relation to maybe the text is off by like 3 points, they will tell you. But anyway,
no, they're like, yeah, she's right. There's been moments where people are like, you need to move that thing 3 like arrow clicks to the right. Right? If it's not 3 arrows to the right, it is trash. Like I've had those moments, like 3 pixels, man, 3 pixels. Like that's make it or break it.
But one more thing to add on to the very long answer that you got to this question is that overall, again, when we were talking about our tips to good design process, have people look over in the process. And if your peers who are reading and looking at your project are saying, what's the point, or what do you want me to do? Or they're not saying, oh, I immediately want to register after looking at this. Maybe you want to try and rearrange where you put what. So. Yes. I think we'll start, I guess, finishing up here because I know we're about to hit time. But does anybody have any last minute questions for us? Anything they want to cover?
Jason, now's the time, bro.
Yeah, now's the time.
It's now's the time, bro. Say something.
Speech.
What do you want me to say?
Speech.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the live stream now.